My name is Emilee, and the title of my project is Ew, Did You Wash Your Hands? My testable question is, where do germs hide on our hands? So I researched the history of hand washing, and I read an article about the germ theory and how much Christians contributed to the advancement of medicine and the care for the sick. This led me to read articles about Christians like Joseph Baron Leicester, Louis Pasteur, and Ignaz Semmelweis, who was a Jew. So my hypothesis is that after hand washing, germs would still hide between our fingers, around our fingernails, and on our wrists. My planned variables were my volunteers and their washing skills. My materials were baby powder, vegetable shortening, a black light, my volunteers, a data sheet, soap and water, and paper towels. For my procedure, I had my volunteers completely cover their hands with vegetable shortening, so the baby powder would stick. Then I completely covered it with baby powder, and I asked that they would wash their hands as normally as they could, and do it as pretend they did not see it, because you don't actually see germs. Then I patted their hands dry and examined their hands under a black light. And then I recorded my data on a scale of 1 to 10. I collected my data in a chart and then averaged the data to get my results. After averaging my results and analysis, the back of the wrist had the largest amount of germs remaining on their hands. Second to this was the back of their fingers, followed by the front of the wrist. I have four main conclusions after my experiment. I concluded that germs were still on my volunteers' hands where I didn't exactly expect them to be. And I noticed that experimenting with humans is kind of tricky. If I were to do this again, I think I would think through my variables and limit them a little bit more. For example, I would blindfold them so they couldn't actually see the baby powder. I also learned how much Christians really contributed to the advancement of medicine and care for the sick. And I noticed that people really need to wash their hands better because what we think is clean is actually quite dirty. For my biblical principle, I chose Psalm 19, 9 through 11. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever. The decrees of the Lord are firm, and all of them are righteous. They are more precious than gold, than much pure gold. They are sweeter than honey from the honeycomb. By them your servant is warned. In keeping them there is great reward. God's laws in Leviticus were given for our protection and health. And modern science really proves this. And I'd like to thank my family, the judges, and Mr. and Mrs. Plating for making the science fair possible.